In this video, guys, we look at how to deal with the very deep pullback. Stay tuned. Hey traders, warm welcome to you. All right, so the very deep pullback can either be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world, depending on how you're looking at it. So what do I mean by the deep pullback first? And let's talk about how you deal with this from a perspective of when you're in the trade, whether you want to get into a trade, how you interpret what it's telling you. So a very deep pullback, well, let's talk about if we look over here first, right? Let's not ruin this perfectly drawn axis on this side. A normal pullback will be this, right? We've got a drive higher, a pullback, and then we get a push to the high side. A shallow pullback might even be just like a little flag. A deep pullback, a very deep pullback, is the same kind of thing, but you get this, okay? And at that point, you are wondering exactly what is happening. You are wondering whether this thing is a V-shaped reversal that's about to rip your face off the moment you go long, or is it just a bit of extension? It's not quite the supply-demand imbalance that you're after. Now, how do you deal with it? So first things first, if you are looking at it from a perspective of taking a long, this kind of thing is generally nicer, right? Higher, tighter pullback, showing the supply-demand is in the favor of the demand. It comes back a little bit. It's not too much, but bang, it's straight away again. And that's a nice trade, as is that one. But don't rule this out because there's still potentially a nice trade for it. Now, generally speaking, we'd look at this and say, okay, there's buyers coming in now, the sellers coming in of equal magnitude. And you'd say, well, you know what, I don't really want to start stabbing at it here because it's 50-50. And I agree. So how do you deal with it? So but what you don't want to do is completely dismiss it, because very often it's the precursor. There's still a battle going on before we get that strength. And so, yes, I wouldn't say, yes, just stab at it there, because under certain circumstances, depending on how that's done, the 50% is not bad. And I think I've done a video before. If I haven't, I will do one where we talk about trading over the non-farm payrolls or econ data. And this works very well, but it's under a very, very short kind of compacted time frame. So it's a little bit different. But let's say this is a kind of over a few hours on a day trade or over a swing chart. You want to buy this, but you kind of think that's better, but don't rule this out. So what do you now look for? Now the best thing to do is to kind of use this as a gauge and go, right, okay, what's the level here to here? Right, that's X. Okay, what's the level here to here? Right, that's Y. Okay, now textbooks will tell you that you need to buy when you break out the high. For me, I feel that's a little bit late. I want to be feeding it into those guys, if I'm honest, unless there's a longer term thesis, of course, that makes sense. However, you can then look at this point here and go, right, okay, well, we've driven up X amount, we've pulled back Y amount, and what's happening now? Now, obviously, if it's going to keep going lower, you're not going to be interested. As it starts to tick up, though, you can start to look for little clues to see if potentially this has got some legs to it. Now, the beauty you've got with this deeper pullback is you can almost look at this area here now as a completely separate chart in itself. And you can look for the ones that you prefer, number one and number two, within that, which you can't do within this because you've only got that little window. So you then can go a trade within a trade. So you can say, right, well, I've got the legs behind it, I've got the wind behind it, it's got some room to move. Now, rather than treating this as the buy level, I can wait until I see something like this within this. So it might drive up, it might pull back a bit, maybe it double bottoms. Aha! I've now got something to work off, because now I've got a smaller trade here. I can trade off that, I can use my stop there, and I can then frame it within this and say, okay, well, the shorter term trade is to take some off here because I'm not so sure about the strength of it. The longer term trade will be to leave some on in the expectation of this pushing up, in the expectation of this kind of working itself out on a longer time frame. So you need to look at this and say, often we negate and we kind of dismiss it and go, it's a deep pullback, and I do it myself. Sometimes I just don't like them. But I'm kind of looking at now and thinking, okay, well, if it still exhibits something that I know exhibits strength from a price action perspective, something like this, maybe I can use that on a smaller time frame, on a smaller scale, if you like, within that pullback, because there's so much room for me to see that. So maybe I can see that double bottom, maybe I can see that flag, maybe I can see that pullback. And yes, is that as strong as this would be? No, it's not, but it's still a reasonably valid trade. And if I can quantify the risks we talk about all the time, it still might be worth having a go. But I would definitely break it up and say, okay, there's one trade here. Because we've come so deep, I will be cautious of the double top. So I would personally be looking to take some out as we approach that double top, because this is ripe for a double top, right? It's just the first thing you see before you see a double top. So I'll be very cautious of that. But I still can make some money from that, and that would be nice. And then I'd decide whether I wanted to hold it for a drive higher, and that was a deep pullback. And actually, all those people selling into that or missing out are actually going to cause fuel for it to drive up. That's something you have to judge depending on the conditions. So anyway, how to deal with a very deep pullback. If you are not long yet and you want to get long, obviously you need to wait until you see some strength. And very often we dismiss it because we don't see strength. But if you then see strength within the pullback, that might be enough for you to pull the trigger and take the trade and implement and kind of take those and push those in to that smaller area and use it that way. All right, guys, hope that's helped. I'll see you next one. Take care. Bye-bye.